What up? What up? What up? It's Ibn Webb, Webb, Quran and Sum here. Got another official thanks situation going down here. I'm doing a Essex County all day edition here. Actually honored, to have this coach come on, coach, former athlete, what have you here. Going back to my alma mater here. I know just being over at 33 College Place in Montclair and Immaculate here, a lot of great people don't walk through those halls here. Not only athletes, but just faculty, everybody there. So I definitely got fond memories. One of the memories is just always hearing this gentleman's name that's about to come on. Just how an extraordinary athlete he was and just how great he was, for the school or what have you there. So never, we probably met in passing, once or twice, I think. I can't recall. You see the gray hairs here, so I'm losing some of my memory. But like I said, but the name has never been forgotten. So, I was able to reach out to him and he was so kind enough to just say he'd be willing to come on and talk a little bit. So definitely looking forward to it. So Coach Lou Racioppe, here we go. Nice to meet you, and I'm sure I've met you once or twice in passing because I was thinking about that the whole week. I was like, I'm sure in passing once or twice.
Were you playing when I was coaching at Verona?
Uh, no. Who was there when I was there? It was I think first it was Coach Rich Sanfilippo. I think he
Okay,
was
so
there.
you're a little bit before I got there.
Yeah, and then he left, and
Right.
somebody else came in between. I forget
Right.
the gentleman's name.
Yeah, I know who you mean, Coach the Kaplanovich. Yep. So
Okay.
when did you go to Immaculate? What were your years there?
I was Immaculate 88 to 92.
Okay, so yeah, I started in Verona at 98. So
Okay.
but yeah, I'm sure our paths have crossed. I know, I know you got a great reputation up there.
Oh, nah. It definitely nothing compared to yours. I would say nothing compared to yours. So, but like I said, I'm honored to just have you on and be willing to just talk with me for a little bit here. So,
Okay.
yeah, I know Mac, it's a small world, and I was able to corner you here. So it's like I said, so I'm very, very, like I said, just taken back by this here. But if I rewind some of the time here, go back around the clock a little bit here. Like, are you from New Jersey? Are you in Essex County?
I grew up in Montclair, so I
Montclair,
grew up
okay.
south end of Montclair, Hawthorne Place, and we used to go up to Porter Park all the time and play with all the neighborhood kids, and that's where I got my love for the games.
Interesting. Like I started elementary in Montclair, the South End. I went to Nishawayne, and then where did I go? I went to Watchung for a brief moment, across town there. So no, I still know, and I played Cobra football. I played Cobra football, so that's where I learned how to play.
When I was playing, it wasn't the Cobras. It was before the Cobras.
Okay.
There was a team called the Grassroots, and we played down at Glenfield.
Okay.
So
Wow.
it was, I know Howard Finney, who set up the Cobras, did a great job, but it was kind of at the beginning of organized football around Montclair. Back, I'd say I was probably like in the late '60s when I was actually playing there. But it was a lot of fun. I learned the game, and had some great coaches and played with some great teammates.
Wow. And even with that being said, do you come from a big family?
I have two brothers. One is both of them are a little bit younger than me. They both went to Immaculate. They were both really good players. One lives in Maryland now. One lives out in California. We still stay in contact. But my father was like the big influence with us as far as all becoming sports fans.
Okay.
Every day when he came home from work, we'd go out in the back, and if it was baseball season, we'd play wiffle ball. And he kept his little book and who had a base hit here and who had a home run and who threw a fit because he got cheated. And, it was always my middle brother, the one that was getting cheated. And he was always the one that was crying. But, when the game was over, we'd go inside and he'd say, you were 4 for 4 today, or you were 1 for 5, but, you made an error on this one play and you argued with the umpire on another play. So he tried to teach us things, besides the game of baseball, that helped us grow up a little bit. And then when the fall came, we changed the baseball field over to a football field, and we were out playing touch for a while. And then as we got a little bit older, it became tackle. And then we got a little bit too big for tackle, and it went back to touch. But, he's the guy that really got us going.
Nah, interesting. So you kind of got that coaching in you, like from a little kid, as far as your father making
Yeah,
jotting notes and
yeah,
all that stuff. Then.
for sure. He was, he was really good as far as all of that stuff goes. And, when I made the All-State team, they wrote an article in the Ledger, and one of the, the highlight, I was the highlight article, highlight player there. Main article was about me, and it gave a lot of props to my father and saying how proud he was because, he coached a lot of us as we were kids. We were growing up in Little League, and then many of us ended up going on to Immaculate and playing, and it was a proud moment for him to see his name in the paper associated with all of that stuff.
Absolutely, absolutely. Did your father play as a kid, as far as you know?
Yeah, yeah. He went to Montclair High School, and he played. He was about, I would say, he was maybe 5'9", maybe 160 pounds, maybe 150 pounds when he was in high school. But he played for Clary Anderson, and he was a starting guard on one of those teams. So, at 150 pounds, he must have been pretty tough. But you can see the way the game's changed a little bit through the years.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, being in Montclair, how do you end up at Immaculate? Knowing Montclair is a sports town, sports driven town, like how does that? How'd you escape that?
Well, I went to the grammar school. So when we moved to Montclair, I was in kindergarten actually. I ended up going to Hillside School for my kindergarten, first and second grade. And my parents were religious. They wanted me to get into a religious school. So they got me into Immaculate. And in third grade, I went to Immaculate and met a lot of good friends there. And we played CYO baseball. We played CYO basketball. We played touch football. It was CYO based back then. But then I wanted to branch out a little bit, and I went down to Glenfield and I tried out for this grassroots team, and I made it. And I got to know a lot of the guys from Montclair High School. And Immaculate did not have football prior to me getting there. The first year that I was there was their first actual year of varsity football. So it was kind of an unknown little thing. And they kind of led me to believe that I could go there and I could play right away as a freshman.
Okay.
And that was important to me. I didn't like to play, I didn't like to sit on the bench at all.
Right.
And knowing that I could go there and play as a freshman was important to me. But then going to Montclair with, the big schools and playing those big schools was also important. So it was a tough decision. And I remember we were in 8th grade, and this is the way they used to recruit back in Immaculate back then. We were sitting in the gym watching a basketball practice, and Joe Lennon, who was the baseball coach, came over to me and a group of my friends. We were all sitting there watching practice, and Joe goes to the first guy, "You going to Immaculate?" And the guy said, "Yeah." And he goes, "All right, I'll give you a pretzel." Joe gave him a pretzel, and second guy goes, "You going to Immaculate?" And he said, "Yeah, I'm going to Immaculate too." Joe gave him a pretzel. The next guy says, "No, I'm not going to Immaculate. I'm going to Montclair." And Joe didn't give him a pretzel. And gets to me, I said, "I want a pretzel, man. I'm hungry."
Yeah, absolutely.
So I said, "I'm going to Immaculate." He gave me a pretzel. And, that really wasn't it. When it got time for us to actually make the decision, all of my friends had decided that we were not going to go to Immaculate. We were all going to go to Montclair High. And it was a Saturday morning, and we had to, put in all the paperwork and everything. And all of a sudden, I'm getting a phone call. "I'm going to Immaculate. I'm going to Immaculate. I'm going to Immaculate. I'm going to Immaculate." So you guys you're all letting me down, man. Come on. I was the only one that was left. So I did not sign up to go to Immaculate. And after about, I would say maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks, I started really second guessing my decision. I was close with my friends. I called Father Burl up and I said, "Father, I think I want to change my mind. I want to get into Immaculate. Is it too late?" And Father Burla was the man, and he was able to pull all the strings, and he got me into Immaculate. And sure enough, it was a decision that it was one of the best decisions that I've ever made. I had a great educational experience there, had a great academic experience there. I met my future wife. Well, I didn't meet her there, but went to school with her there, and everything was great. I coached there for 5 years, or actually 7 years, 2 years as an assistant, 5 as the head, and I loved Immaculate, and I still do.
Yeah, no, definitely. So you get there as them starting. You mentioned football, varsity football. Did you play as a freshman? Did you?
As a freshman, things were a little bit different back then too. As a freshman, we would play games on Saturday morning. So I would play a freshman game on a Saturday morning, and then the varsity team usually played on Sundays. So on Sundays, I would suit up for the varsity, and for the first maybe 4 or 5 games, I would play maybe a little bit of special teams. I'd get in a little bit here and a little bit there. As we got to the middle of the season, late in the season, I starting on defense. And, so we'd play the games on Sunday, and then there'd be a JV game on Monday, and I'd play in the JV game on Monday. So I was pretty much playing 3 games every weekend. And then on Tuesday, after the JV game, we'd get back and we'd start to practice again and go through the whole thing. So we really never had a day off, and you really didn't realize how much you were doing at the time. Playing games was fun, and, I wouldn't have it any other way. It was a lot of fun playing in all those games. And, as a football player, you can't beat the experience that you got playing. So it was a lot of fun. It was good. And, I learned an awful lot and had some good coaches and played with some great teammates. In baseball, right from the very beginning, I was a starter in left field as a freshman, and, played for 4 years there. And, we had some good teams there. We were young my first couple of years there, and, we took our lumps, but as we, a lot of freshmen and sophomores were playing, and as we got to be juniors and seniors, we became a pretty good baseball team.
Now, the schools, football and baseball, were you guys playing some of the same schools in both sports, or was it a mix?
Yeah, it's funny. We used to play, Paramus Catholic was a team that we played in baseball and football, and you look at where they've gone now, and, they're pretty much a national power. We played Cedar Grove was local. We played Clifford Scott, which was, it's now part of East Orange. We played St. Mary's Rutherford. We played Queen of Peace. We played Paul VI, which is no longer in existence. In baseball, we played a lot of we played Our Lady of the Valley, which is no longer in existence either. That was our big rivalry, a Thanksgiving Day rivalry in football. And we played them in baseball. We played them twice a year in baseball. We never beat them. My all 8 times that we ever played them, we always made some crucial mistake at some time, and we ended up losing to them. And it's kind of funny because a lot of the guys that played on that Valley team ended up going to Seton Hall and became really good friends of mine. And they've never let me forget that they would always beat us.
Probably to this day, I'm sure. To this day, I'm sure.
For sure.
And absolutely. I know even with football here, I know. So you get going, obviously, middle of freshman year, so you start playing. And then again, was it one of those things here, like, when did you, again, not to be cocky, but I think totally confident. But when did you realize, like, I'm kind of good at both these sports here? Like,
Yeah, sophomore year, I played a lot, and I thought that I was pretty good. I made a couple of the all-conference teams in both sports. Made maybe second or third team all-county in a couple of the sports. And then my junior year in football, I caught mono right before the season. I actually missed 2 games with that. And then by the third, I think it was the third game, I played a little bit of defense. The 4th game, I was playing a little bit of offense and a little bit of defense. And then by the 5th game, I was kind of back to normal. And I was doing pretty well. I was scoring some touchdowns. I was running for some big yards. And, that's when I was starting to get some phone calls and some letters from some schools that made me think that maybe I could go on and play football. And, baseball really wasn't back then. Football was it. If you were a football player, that's what you wanted to do. And you just never really thought about giving up football to play baseball back then. So it was football. My senior year, I led Essex County in scoring, rushed we only played 9 games back then. We didn't have the playoffs. Mm-hmm. So we were, we were an okay team, and I did okay, made all county, and got a couple of offers, went to visit a couple of schools. And, eventually what happened was Seton Hall started recruiting me heavily, and Coach Manigan, who was the head football coach at that time, he must have worked out some kind of deal with Coach Shepard that said that I could play both. And so that was it. I mean, that sold me right then. And I could go play football in the fall, play baseball in the spring. Seton Hall was nationally ranked at the time. They were 5th in the country. And I could go there and play baseball with those guys too. And wow, that was it. And that's what made my decision, easy. And, again, I had a great time. I played football for 1 year there. Okay. During the summer playing baseball, I broke my elbow, and they told me that I could never play football again.
Got hit by a pitch or something?
It was a crazy thing because I was playing the outfield, and there was a ball hit between me and the shortstop. Mm-hmm. And I was coming in for it. He was going out for it. And I could see that we were going to bump into each other. So I kind of dove out of the way. And as I dove out of the way, I left my elbow up, and he came by and he kicked my elbow.
Yeah.
and it broke. And then he stepped on my leg and he cut my leg, and there was all blood. There was all blood coming out of my leg. And when everybody came out, they're going, "Oh my God, look at his leg! Look at his leg!" I said, "My leg is fine. There's nothing wrong with my leg. I broke my elbow. He broke my elbow. If I would have just run him over, he was a little skinny shortstop. I could have plowed him and nothing would have happened." But that was it for me for football. They wouldn't let me play football anymore after that. I was laid up for the fall in baseball, and Coach Shepard, God bless him, he said, "Okay, we'll take your scholarship over." And I was on a baseball scholarship, just played baseball for the next couple of years in my life over at Seton Hall.
Now, even with that being said, did you have any pro aspirations, even sticking with baseball? Or
I always did. I mean, I was a good hitter. My arm, even before the injury, was shaky at best.
Mhm.
And then once I broke my elbow, my sophomore year in college, I was a total DH. I couldn't throw at all.
Okay.
My junior year, I played the outfield, but I never took infield because Shepard, he was the master of the skies. He would have somebody take infield out there in left field that had a gun for an arm. So then I'd go out there in the game and I could barely get the ball back to the shortstop. But he never wanted to let anybody know that their left fielder didn't have an arm. And then by my senior year, my arm was shot again, and I DH'd most of my senior year. So, I would have loved to have been able to play, on the next level, but it was just impractical because I couldn't throw.
Yeah. Now, even with that being said, obviously you still staying in athletics, obviously, but was that the thought, like maybe I'll get into coaching, or was it something?
At that point, I was just out of college, was kind of figuring out what I wanted to do with myself. And Rich O'Connor, who was just named the head football coach at Immaculate at that time, was looking around for some assistant coaches. And, he came up to me. And again, Father Burlow was very instrumental in all of this. He got us together and said, Lou's looking for something to do. Maybe he'll be interested in coaching with you. And I coached with Rich for a year, and it kind of turned me on to coaching. It allowed me to continue in an athletic career, even though I couldn't play anymore. So it was fun. I learned a lot from Rich. I've maintained a close relationship with him through the years. Rich left after 1 year. I stayed on as an assistant for another year. And then after that, the head coach left there, and then I became the head coach. I was 25 years old, and I was the head coach at Immaculate. And, it was almost like a dream come true. It was something that, I had always, I looked up to my coaches, Jack Jones and Joe Lennon and those guys. And, I kind of idolized them. And here I was in the same shoes as them. Rich gave up the baseball job, and I took over the baseball job. So, at 25, I was head football coach, head baseball coach. And, I was on top of the world as far as I was concerned.
No, absolutely. You mentioned that Immaculate Pipeline. That just kind of was the pattern. I mean, again, young coaches getting head coaching gigs, or at least sticking around. Just that loyalty and just kind of commitment to Immaculate. Even when you're gone, you're part of it. You're part of
For
it.
sure.
You find your way back there somehow, some way. So that was interesting. So you're 25. You get a head coach. Like, are you just scared out of your pants? Or you're like, I got this.
I had a lot of young kids everybody that was there was an Immaculate grad. So we were all on the same page. Everybody wanted the program to do well. Everybody wanted the program to win. Nobody was there, trying to raise themselves up to the next level to get another job. They just wanted to see Immaculate do well. Mm-hmm. And they were all good people. They were all good coaches, and we did pretty well. I was the head coach there for 5 years. We made the playoffs most of those years. We made it to the state finals a couple of years. And of course we ended up playing Pope John. And, back then, they were the big powerhouse, and it was parochial. I think it was parochial C way back then. Mm-hmm. But, we were never able to get over the hump and win a state championship at Immaculate, but met a lot of good people there. And, a lot of the kids went on, played ball in college, and it was a lot of fun. I made a lot of good friends there.
I know I'm dating you a little bit with all this stuff here. Do you remember your first regular season game you coached?
Absolutely. My first regular season game was against St. Mary's Rutherford, who happened to be the defending state champs at the time. Mm. And it was a close game. And right before halftime, we ran a middle screen, and it went to Derek Battle. And okay. Derek was about 5'6", maybe 135, 140 pounds, but he was really quick, and he caught that middle screen, and he just took off, boom, scored, went for a touchdown, and that kind of broke the game open. So, that was something that I'll always remember. And I haven't spoken to Derek in quite some time, but the last time we spoke, that was one of the things that we did talk about.
So yeah, first game you beat the defending state champs.
Yeah, and it was a good one. It was over in Rutherford, and it was a good thing to it was a great thing to win your first one.
Oh, absolutely. Now, what kind of offense did you run back then?
Back then, we ran an I. I mean, football was so simple back then.
Yeah.
When I played, we ran double tight power I, and we ran blast power and sweep, blast power sweep, blast power sweep, blast power sweep. By the time I was coaching a few years later, we kind of got away from the power I, but it was mostly double tight with a flanker and a I backfield, and we had a couple of tailbacks. We had a guy by the name of Mike Benfonte, who Mike is an interesting story. Mike went to Brown.
Okay.
And he was one of the fastest kids that I've ever coached. And Mike was a guy. He was in the towers when 9/11 came. And he was responsible for getting a woman who was in a wheelchair down from, and I don't remember what floor number it was, but it was way up high. And he literally carried her down all the stairs, got her out of there. And, he was well renowned for it. He was on the news. I was watching the news that day, and sure enough, I see his face on TV, and it's like, oh my goodness, that's Mike. And they start telling the story. He ended up on the cover of People magazine. He ended up on Oprah. And soon after that, he got inducted into the Immaculate Hall of Fame, and he asked me to write, to introduce him. And, that was one of the big thrills of my life, to be able to introduce him. I see Mike, all the time now, and, he's doing well, but that was something that it was, something that was just amazing. He wrote a book, and in the book, he said, when he was coaching, when he was running down the stairs, a lot of the things that Coach Racioppe had taught him were what was keeping him going. And, I thought, I always look back at that and say, you always wonder what you do to kids. Do you have an impact on them? Do you influence them? And when I read that, it just brought chills to me, to make me think that how he had responded and the things that I may have done that helped him get through that type of situation.
Yeah, when life and sports meet, and yeah, that says a lot. That says a lot. As you're just sharing that story, I mean, like, it's just touching. Just like, again, obviously for him to make it through, and obviously on top of that, saving somebody else's life, like,
yeah,
it don't get no better than that.
No, not at all.
No better. I know being at Immaculate, so as you're winning, you're playing in state games, all this other stuff here. Did you outgrow it? It was like, hey, it was time to go or another challenge or something? Or?
Well, the challenge would be something, but, to be very honest with you, it was more financial than anything else. At Immaculate, I was teaching. I was the dean of discipline there. I was responsible for hiring subs when the teacher was absent. I was responsible for putting the report cards together. I was teaching English. I was coaching baseball. I was coaching football. I was working the clock at all basketball games. I was lining the field for baseball games. I was lining the field for football games, and I was making literally nothing.
Yeah.
And I was recently married, and we were planning on having a kid, and I just knew that I had to make some kind of move. And I was able to get a job in a public school, which, raised my income significantly. And I was at Rawway for 2 years. And, I missed Immaculate and kept track of them, every single Saturday when they were playing. I've maintained a great relationship with Coach Finn through the years, and, would talk to him from time to time about what was going on. And, some of the players, that I left that were still juniors and seniors, and how they were doing, and tried to help them get into colleges and things like that. But, if Immaculate was financially able to afford me, I would have probably stayed there for my whole life.
Okay. Now, when you left, did you think Coach Finn was ready for the job?
Absolutely. We knew Coach Finn was going to do a great job. And, he certainly did. He won a couple of state championships there, which was something that we weren't able to do. But, no question he would do well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So you get the Rawway. So that's the Watchung, right? That Watchung division, right?
My first year in Rawway, we played 5 teams that were in the top 20 in the state and 3 teams that were in the top 5 of the state. We were playing Union, we were playing Elizabeth, we were playing Linden.
Yeah.
And we were overwhelmed. I mean, we were a Group 2 school playing those type of teams, and they overwhelmed us. We played Elizabeth, and Elizabeth was beating us. I'm going to say the score was like 53-0,
Mm-hmm.
and they scored with maybe 2 minutes to go in the game, make it like 58,
Mm-hmm.
and he goes for 2. So he makes the 2, gets it to get. I think the final score was 58-0. So now we come out, the game's over. I go out to shake his hand after the game, and I kind of gave him one of these, I don't really want to shake your hand, but I gotta.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, "What's the matter?" And I said, "Well, I don't really think you needed to go for that 2 right there, did you?" He goes, "Well, we had to work on our 2-point play." I said, "You would probably have gotten a lot more work and practice on Tuesday than you would have out there at that time." And that was kind of embarrassing. He goes, "Yeah, I embarrassed you, and I'm going to embarrass you every year from now on, and there's not a thing that you're going to be able to do about it."
That's what he said to you? Yeah.
Those were his exact words. And I've never forgot that. And the next year, we had built ourselves up a little bit. We still weren't a great team, but we were very competitive. And we're playing Elizabeth, and we're losing to them 14-7.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going in to make it 14-14, and our quarterback calls an audible. And he audibled a pitch to one side. The running back didn't pick the audible up, so he goes to the other side. Quarterback turns around, pitches the ball back. Nobody's there. One of their defensive players picks the ball up, runs it into the end zone. So now instead of us tying it up, they're now up 2 scores. We ended up making the score 28-14 was the final score. But when the game was over, he came up to me. I shake his hand, and he goes, "Well, you're doing a lot better this year. Keep it up. Keep up the good work. You got this program going in the right direction." So I was kind of happy to hear that.
Yeah.
It showed that people were respecting what we were doing and that we were making some progress.
Yeah. And you said you only stayed there 2 years.
I was there 2 years. The last game that I ever played at Rawway, or I ever coached at Rawway, we were playing Cranford on Thanksgiving.
Okay.
And Rawway's a special town. If you've ever been there, if you know anything about it, it's a lot of old school.
I just know the prison. I just know the prisons out there. That's it.
Yeah.
Unfortunate.
There's a lot of old school people there. Yeah. And there's one guy who, he wasn't involved in the school, but he ran the athletic program there.
Okay.
And every day, every game, you had to go to his place and you had to sit down with him and you had to talk to him. He literally would say, "Why'd you run the ball here? Why'd you throw the ball there? Why is this kid playing? Why is that kid playing?" You had to account for yourself. And right before the Thanksgiving Day game, he comes up to me and he spoke in this loud, gruff voice. He goes, "Hey, coach, how we doing today? How we looking on Thursday?" And I said, they're okay. If we play well, we'll win. If we make mistakes, they're going to beat us." He goes, "Well, they better play well because I got 2,000 on them and I'm giving 6.5 points." I said, "What? Are you kidding me?" I said, "You got to be kidding me. You're betting $2,000 on a high school football game?" And he goes, so I said, "Okay." So we're in the 4th quarter of this game and we're winning the game 14-7. Mm-hmm. And they're driving now. And my defensive coordinator is on the phone with me and he's going, "Hey, Lou, I think when they score, they're going to use this play to go for 2. And I say, no, I don't care about the 2. You got to stop them now. They can't get in the end zone. If they get in the end zone, it'll be 14. And even if we win, it'll be 14-13. He's going, "What are you talking about?" I said, "No, just stop them. Don't let them get into the end zone." And sure enough, we stopped them. We end up winning the game 14-7. Mm-hmm. I got to go to the place after. And he walks in and he goes, "That was some game. I can't believe you stopped them." He takes 2 expensive bottles of champagne, puts them up on the bar and goes, "Go home and enjoy Thanksgiving with your family." I said, "Oh, man." And that was it for me with Rawway. I said, "I can't deal with this anymore." So I took the champagne, of course.
Well, absolutely.
But that was the last game I ever coached at Rawway. From there, I ended up going up to Bergen County, up to Pascack Hills. Mm-hmm. And I spent 3 years up there.
Yeah. So, and I know they were, now who did they pretty much play? Pascack
Hills. They played, again, I always seem to find myself in positions where I was the smaller school playing some of the larger schools, but they played We played Ramapo, who was a powerhouse back then. We played Pascack Valley, was a powerhouse back then. That was our Thanksgiving Day rival. We played Coach Toll's team. He was coaching Riverdale at the time. Coached against him. We played Bergenfield. We played a lot of those Bergen County teams from up there. So we were not real good.
Mm-hmm.
Matter of fact, the athletic director going into the last year that I was coaching there, the athletic director comes up to me and goes, Lou, I don't know if you're going to win a game, but I don't even think you may score a point this year. And we were playing 11 sophomores were starting for us.
Okay.
And that was the last year that I was up there. The following year, with a lot of juniors playing, they turned into a pretty good team. And then the following year, most of those sophomores were seniors. They became a really good team. So somebody again was able to, get the fruits of some of the hard work that I put in to start things off. So it was, it was challenging up there. It's a great school. I met a lot of good people up there and still contact with a few of the people, but it was a tough place to play football. And they really haven't had a whole lot of success through the years up there.
Yeah, and then from there, is that when you get to Verona, or you?
No,
make another stop.
Actually, yeah, I went down to Long Branch for 5 years.
Okay.
And at Long Branch again, I was only an assistant coach at Long Branch for my 5 years there. I was the head baseball coach for 4. Mm-hmm. And I was an assistant football coach there for 5. And I love Long Branch too. It was a great school. I met so many good people there. But I was living in West Orange at the time. Yeah. So it was a little bit more than an hour ride every day. Yeah. And, we thought about moving down, but, I guess just I'm a person from around here in Essex County, and it just never turned out. So I applied for a couple of jobs, and I ended up getting a teaching job in Montclair. Okay. And, I ended up teaching in Montclair for 24 years after that. So, but Long Branch was a great situation. I had a defensive coordinator over there by the name of Jimmy Simonelli, who taught me an awful lot about football. He was this was all pre-computer, and all the stuff that you see now on the computers, the readouts, he used to do by hand. And he would have these charts with pictures and colors, and this was one color meant this and another color meant that and another color meant that. And he'd look at it and he'd be able to figure out this other team's tendencies. So I really learned a lot about analyzing the game from him. And he was good. He became the principal there later on. He had to stop coaching football because of that, but he was a good football coach. And I still keep in contact with a lot of the guys over there. I'm sure the Billy Georges and the Danny Georges, who's now still the coach over there. They were all good friends of mine, and still keep in contact with them.
Wow. And then on top of that, like you said, you was at Montclair, you started teaching there.
I taught at Montclair for 24 years. I coached at Montclair for a year with Coach Labita. And again, he was another tremendous person. He was a great mentor to me. Mm-hmm. He just had a special way about himself. He was one of the most cool and calm and collected people I've ever met. No matter how bad the situation was, he was as calm as could be. And I wish I learned that from him, because I have a tendency to fly off the handle a little bit. But again, I learned a lot. When I did end up going up to Verona, I took a lot of the stuff that I learned from Coach Labita up there with me. And I also I coached for a year up at DePaul High School. My old coach, Joe Lennon, and again, an old immaculate guy, when he heard that I had come into Montclair, he offered me a job, coached up there for a year. And the year that I was with him up at DePaul, I think we were 10-0 going into the state finals. We played, again, Pope John in the finals, and our quarterback got hurt, so he was kind of ineffective. And we ended up losing to Pope John 14-7. So a couple of the times that I did get into the finals, it was Pope John sitting on the other end and knocking us out.
Yeah. And I know, and it's just interesting, again, with Immaculate, somehow you find somebody along the way in your journey here. You mentioned Coach Lennon, if he's in DePaul. When you was at Montclair, was Joe Cannon, was he still hanging around there?
Joe, I still talk to Joe all the time. We go fishing up to the Campfire Club with him. Joe was coaching with Montclair. Yep. And Joe just recently retired too. So
I would love to
He's
talk
out of
to
the
him.
business.
I haven't spoken to him in
I
years.
can get you his number. Were you in school with Joe, or was Joe coaching when you were
No,
there?
no, he was coaching. He was coaching,
Coaching, yeah.
and
You
he's
know,
like a
Joe.
football mind. Like you mean, just behind the scenes, like all the
Well,
yeah.
Joe and his brother Jimmy, when they were younger, they used to put on some shows to entertain us.
Oh, with the
They
not
kept
the
us in
magic,
stitches.
not the magic stuff. I know
The
one of them.
magic,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Now I remember. And then obviously the Kiernans are a big family. You got coach, you got Tom Kiernan, you got the rest of the gang,
Well,
yeah.
Tom coached with me up at Pascack Hills, and Chris coached with me up at when I was at Immaculate. So
Okay. Okay.
I know them all. I know them well.
Yeah, yeah. So you get over to you had DePaul, then you get to Verona. Now Verona, small town, but it's a sports town, a football
Right.
town. It's a football, baseball, a few other sports too. But yeah, so taking that on again, as far as again, I don't know, when you got there, were they coming off a winning season or
No, they had struggled.
okay.
They always had a lot of potential, but they could just never quite put it together. And when I got there, my first year, we were 6-2 at one point.
Okay.
We made it into the playoffs. My first game at Verona, we actually played Immaculate.
Mm-hmm.
And we ended up winning. I think it was one of the state championship teams at Immaculate too. It would have been 98. And I think Gill was the quarterback back then.
He was 94. This was it was the other quarterback. I'm drawing a blank.
Well, I know he was good. Whoever he was really good.
Jamil. I had to think of his name. Jamil.
Yeah. And that was my first game of Verona. We ended up winning the game 8-6.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a battle all the way. And Coach Finn was coaching over there, and I was coaching at Verona. And it was a battle. But that was my first win at Verona. And we played them a couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the times that we played them was the game with the sinkhole. I don't know if you ever heard of that story.
No.
But we're playing the game. I'm going to say it was midway through the third quarter or so, and was up in the far corner, up on the other side, away from the school up at Verona. And all of a sudden, there's all this commotion and everything else. And the piles, and there's a kid who's in a sinkhole, and he's up to his hip. And his leg is down in the sinkhole. So they pull him up, and they're trying to figure out what's going on. They take the sticks, they stick the sticks down to see how far this hole is going. And they never found the end. So, they're reaching it down. And they ended up postponing the game, and we ended up finishing it up on Sunday, I guess either Sunday or Monday, whenever it was. But that was the end of that field. We never really played another game on that field after that. They pretty much had to go in there, and they found all these holes all the way around. And we kind of found out that there used to be tunnels underneath that school. And then when they built that field, they put all logs and every kind of piece of junk that they could to fill up all of the areas up there. And I guess all the wood started to rot, and all these sinkholes were created. And it was scary because the kid could have gotten all the way down, but it was quite an experience. Anybody that played in that game will always tell you about the sinkhole. And kid's name was Joe Corbo, who was down in the hole.
Now hopefully they have turf now, I would assume.
They do. They compressed it. They had to really bang it down and bang it down and bang it down so that it just kept going lower and lower and lower. And then they fill it and bang it down, and now they got turf. So I think it's pretty safe right now.
Because I'm thinking, imagine someone running and they just,
it's crazy. It was unbelievable what we were going through, and nobody could figure it out. Man, people were having their little cell phones. They were taking a flashlight down to see how far they could see, and nobody could see. Somebody had a rope, and they put something on the rope to let it down to see how far it would go down, and they never found the bottom to it.
Now, how was it? I mean, emotionally or whatever, just coaching against Coach Finn. I mean, again, you guys are buddies, but in the same breath.
It was hard. It was really hard. It was hard. Somebody once said to me, I hate coaching against my friends. There's enough people in this game that I don't like, that I like beating, that when I end up beating my friend, I feel bad. And when I end up losing to my friend, I feel worse. So you try to stay away from that. But I mean, we were both in the same conference. We really didn't have any choice as to whether we were going to play each other. So, but it was hard. There's a lot of respect for each other across the field. And, as the game was going on, you could see, the intensity was building because the game was tight, but it was not an easy situation. And I've coached against a couple of other guys that I've coached with. I coached against Coach Kubik, who's at Madison now, and we kind of nod across this when somebody made a nice play or something. He would give me the heads up, and I'd give him the heads up. And he went to kick a field goal, and I called a timeout, and he looks at me and goes, "Where'd you learn that one from?" So it's like it's kind of fun, but it's not an ideal situation as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. And I know coaching and educating and everything, like this was sports. Like, what is it just giving you like that stuck with you to this day? I mean, I know whether it was coaching or playing, something that just stays.
The relationships are great. I think back to some of the things. One of the things that I learned from Coach Shepard was he was a master of of how to motivate people. Mm-hmm. He knew with every single person on his team, he knew what button to push. He was amazing like that. And, the first time he put me into a game. The first time my freshman year at Seton Hall, we ended up being 5th in the country, and I was the designated runner for Rick Cerrone. Mm-hmm. And I just would run, I'd get on base and I'd steal. And we were playing a really big game against FDU, and I was on third base, and there was a fly ball. I was tagging up, and I was out by 15 feet, but I put my shoulder into the catcher, knocked him down, knocked the ball out of his hand. It scored a run, and we ended up winning the game. And Shepard loved me for that. I mean, that was like the beginning of our relationship, because he was a tough guy. He played football when he was in high school. And from then on, he would chase me out in the outfield and try to tackle me and do things like that. But he put me into a game, and I was 3 for 3 in the first game that I ever started.
Okay.
And we were playing St. Peter's, and we were winning the game by a lot. So I'm about ready to get up, and he goes, "I'm pinch hitting for you. The chances of you going 4 for 4 in a game are slim. I'm getting you out." So I said, "Come on, I'm 3 for 3. He goes, "No, you're not going to get another hit." And from then on, he always knew that the best way to get me going was to challenge me. So every time somebody would come into a game, or every big situation, he'd call timeout, call me down, and goes, "Hey, I think I'm going to put a pinch hitter in for you." And I'd say, "No way, man." And it would just tick me off enough to make me dig down that little extra. And I would, not always, but many times I'd get that base hit that knocked in the run or won the game or whatever. But he knew that that's what it was to get me going. Other people, he could scream and yell at him, and that got him going. Other people, if he yelled at him, they went into a shell, and he just put his hands around their back and, did what he needed to do to calm them down. But he knew every single player through all the years that I was there, what exactly to do to motivate them. And that was something that I tried to do. You could realize as a coach that, there were certain people that if you yelled at them, they just went, into a shell. And certain people, you'd almost have like a little talk with them and say, if I yell at you, I'm using you as an example, but I'm using you as an example for the rest of the team. So you can deal with that, right? Oh yeah, you can yell at me all you want. Anthony Fasano was a guy like that. He was the best player. He played in the pros for 12 years. Mm-hmm. And anytime anything went wrong, it was always Fasano. And he would go, "Well, coach, what?" And I'd yell out whatever it was. And then he'd go back into the huddle and say, "Coach wants this, coach wants that." And when Anthony said it, everybody listened to it. But Anthony had the kind of personality that you could do that with. There were other kids that if you tried to do something like that with, it wouldn't work. And, as you got to know the kids in the weight room, as you got to know them through practice, you realized who was able to listen to this, who was able to do this. And you got to know them, and you got to know which buttons to push to make them be better players.
Interesting. And even as a coach, how has it changed from when you started even to, your last stint as a coach? I mean, from how they've been raised, kids are raised now, to technology. Well, I mean, like, I know you had a lot of adjustments to do on the fly. When I played, they used to give the coaches used to walk around as we were doing Cal for either our second or third double session, and we were in woolen sweatshirts and full equipment on September 1st, and it was about 85 degrees with about a 90% humidity.
And the two coaches would walk around, or three coaches would walk around the cow lines, and one would have a sugar pill and they would give it to you. One would have a salt pill and he would give it to you. And one would have a bucket of water with a ladle, and he'd pull the ladle up and you drank from the ladle, and then he'd go to the next person. Mm-hmm. So that gives you a little bit of an idea about what it was like when I started playing. You would never get a water break. Water breaks were, they showed weakness. Mm-hmm. When I first started coaching, we went through double sessions. We probably hit a lot more back then than we did later on. By the time I was done, we never even thought about doing double sessions. We hit very little during the week. Mm-hmm. Now the weight room is so big. Back when I played, the weight room was really just starting to come into vogue. Right. So people didn't really go into the weight room. And I think we played Cresco one year in a state championship game, and we ended up winning the game 20-0. And in the paper the next day, the Cresco coach said this game was won in the weight room. And I thought that was a tribute to our kids, because we had spent so much time in the weight room that, we were bigger and stronger and more physically imposing than them. And we ran the ball and we were able to dominate the football game. And the same thing on defense. They weren't able to push us around at all. And I think it was because we were big and strong. And, that was something that, we were able to do in recent years, which, when I first started out, that really wasn't a big concern, the weight room.
Yeah, genetics, physics, all this stuff. I mean, obviously the research, and you being a coach probably done seen it all from talking to other coaches and just things over time here. As you were just saying weight room, I had a flashback. Like when you was at Immaculate, was there a weight room?
When I was no, well, kind of. I think maybe going into my junior year, maybe into my senior year, Coach Jones bought a Universal. Do you remember one of those? What those things were?
I heard that name in a long time. Yeah.
Universal was a big machine that had maybe 7 or 8 different appliances on it.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
You could bench, you could squat on it, you could military and do things like that. But the thing that I remember about that is one guy carried the whole thing down by himself, and he was about 5'9" or 5'10". He probably weighed about 225, and he was wearing a tight shirt, and the muscles were out to here on him, and he was carrying that thing down there by himself. And they put it in the boys' locker room, is where it was.
Now this is over at Cody Field. Over at Cody Field.
No. This is at the high school.
At the high school.
This is at the high school. Okay. Yeah. So there were never any weights down at Cody Field. But this Universal was in the locker room there. And, we never really had any formal training. I think you'd go in there during gym class, and benching was the big thing. Everybody wanted to bench. Nobody wanted to do anything else. So you get on the bench and you pump out a few reps there and see how much you could bench. But, that was pretty much it as far as weightlifting goes. And we never had anything down at the field. We never had any free weights. And even when I was a coach there at Immaculate, we really didn't have that kind of stuff going on.
Nah, I think it was like you said, it was a bench, and it was over at the school in some room they transformed next to the stage. There was some room over there.
Yeah, I know. I know. I've seen that through the years later on. Yep.
Yeah. All just actually, I mean, like I said, I'm just like hearing the stories. This is so great here, and obviously having some recollection of some of the stuff you talk about, just names and things you're talking about here. I just wanted to have a little fun here before. I mean, I do it with everybody. Kind of put you on the spot a little bit. No pressure. You've had bigger pressure than me doing this. So, but when you're in the car, do you prefer the Parkway or the Turnpike?
I like the Parkway better than the Turnpike. I do not like the Turnpike. There's too many big trucks.
Yeah. Glenfield Park or Nishwayne?
I played football when I was growing up at Glenfield, and I played baseball at Immaculate at Nishwayne. So I got fond memories of both of those. I think I have better memories of playing baseball at Nishwayne than playing football at Glenfield, though. So I'm going to go with Nishwayne on that one.
Being the Montclair guy, Bloomfield Ave or Harrison Avenue?
Oh, Bloomfield Avenue, of course.
You got a favorite spot to eat over it on Bloomfield Ave?
On Bloomfield Avenue, when I was growing up, we used to go to it's now the CVS. Okay. It used to be Kresge's 5 and 10. And they used to have like a little soda fountain there, and you could go in there, and they had all these balloons up there on the wall, and you'd punch a balloon and it would have a number in it, and that's how much you had to pay for your ice cream sundae.
Really? Wow.
So, yeah, that was our fun place.
Immaculate or Seton Hall?
Oh, I loved Immaculate. I'm sitting here I'm in my house and I'm looking at pictures on my wall, and I got a picture from time down the shore when my friends from high school got together and played another group of friends who were a year older than us, and we played a softball game down the shore, and we ended up winning it. And I got a picture of us celebrating, and it's like my 10 best friends from high school. So we stay in contact pretty much, and I love my seat. I love the Immaculate. I got a lot of good friends there. I love Seton Hall, but I think you got to go back to Immaculate because it's Montclair.
Yeah, yeah. Best game you ever played in your life, athletically, whatever the sport was.
Well,
what sticks out?
There's a lot, but I think the game that sticks out more than anything else was when we were playing Queen of Peace.
Okay.
My junior year, we were playing Queen of Peace, and we were beating them 28-20. Queen of Peace was ranked in the state at the time, and they had the leading scorer in the state, a kid by the name of Donnie Gilson. And we're winning the game 28-20, and it's getting late in the game, and Gilson breaks a run down our sideline. And I'm chasing him, and I'm sure Coach Mal was chasing him too. And we got the angle on him, but he was pretty fast. And the next thing we know, he's tackled. And what happened? Well, somebody came off our bench and tackled him as he was running down the sideline. So the refs didn't know what to do. Me and Mal are looking at each other like, what happened? We look and we see who it is. And he goes back in and he hides back in amongst everybody else. They threw a penalty flag. They did not give the kid a touchdown, I don't think. But anyway, they eventually scored. Okay. And then they had to go for the 2 to tie the game up. And they missed the 2. We ended up winning the game 28-26. So that was my junior year. My senior year, a lot of those guys were back, and we're playing Seton or playing Queen of Peace, and we're playing them at our field now. And it's a close game. We're losing the game 16-7 or 14-7. And I end up taking a kid's running, and I steal the ball out of his hand, and I run, and I get ourselves in a pretty good spot. And then we ran the sleeper play. And I don't know if you remember, it was a famous play that Immaculate Jackie Jones put in, whereas basically a guy hit on the sideline, and when the ball was snapped, he took off down the sideline, and the quarterback threw it to him. And we scored a touchdown to make it 16-14 or 14-14, I think. We stopped them, and then they punted to us, and I ran the punt back for a touchdown. Okay. And we ended up winning the game 23-14, whatever it was. But that game was probably the highlight of my high school career. I shouldn't say, but it was just exciting because there was so much pressure on us to win this game after what happened to them the year before. The next game, which was my last game, was also a big one. We ran 44 plays from scrimmage. I carried the ball 41 times. Ooh. I handed the ball off on a reverse one time, and I threw a halfback option pass. So out of the 44 plays, I touched the ball on 43 of them and scored 3 touchdowns. We ended up beating Valley on Thanksgiving. And because I scored the 3 touchdowns and Valley's kid didn't score any touchdowns, I ended up winning the scoring title. So that was another big game for me. But after that game was the last high school game I ever played, sitting in the locker room with my equipment on. I didn't want to take it off because it was over, and you know what that's feelings like. And I was the last person in it. The coaches were still upstairs, and I was still sitting there in my shoulder pads. And Joe Lennon came downstairs. He sees me. He was about ready to leave. Comes downstairs, and I don't even know if I should even say this, but comes down. He goes back upstairs. He comes down. He puts a beer down, and he goes, "Here, you deserve this." And
that's all right.
That's all right. Yeah. So
that's all right.
That was the end of my high school career as far as football goes, and I'll never forget that one as long as I live.
Can I ask, with that halfback pass, you completed?
I did. I did. I threw it up for grabs, and somebody ended up catching it, but it was certainly not a Dan Marino type pass.
Mm-hmm. And then being at Immaculate, I mean, obviously, growing up in Montclair, obviously they're the big school, they're the big brother, so to speak, here. But even in Montclair or even other athletes you played in the area here, did they try to give you slack because you getting all these numbers at smaller schools? I mean, I know. I used to hear that.
All the time. I played Dale Berra. I played baseball with Dale Berra. And he was saying, man, if I ever played the schedule that you guys are playing, I'd bat 900 and I'd have 17 home runs instead of 13. And then a couple of the other guys, Earl Vaughan was a big time football player. He was the running back there. He ended up going to Syracuse, and he lived in the neighborhood, so I knew him pretty well. And we would rib each other a little bit because we were kind of in competition for the scoring lead in Essex County, and I ended up winning it. So, and we played basketball against each other. The playground stuff was always big back then. Immaculate had a playground, and we would go to different playgrounds and play the guys. We'd go up to Mountainside and play the Upper Montclair kids. We'd go down to Rand and play the guys there, or go down to Nishawin and play them. We play them in softball. We play them in basketball. And, I really wasn't very good in basketball, but we had a couple of guys that were with me that were pretty good players. So it was always a lot of fun. We had a good time. I mean, growing up in Montclair back then was so much fun. The playgrounds were great. The Little League was great. It was a lot of fun back then.
Yeah, and I think the one similarity, as you're just sharing that, I think one, they can make the comments about playing small, but you grew up playing with them, so they kind of knew like it was who you were and how good you were. So I think that was kind of my out with the guys in Montclair, going like I grew up like playing Little League with them, so they kind of knew like it's not smoke and mirrors or whatever the case is.
We played. They used to. I mean, Montclair did some great things. They ran a town-wide basketball tournament one year, and everybody entered. Like the Upper Montclair kids entered, the Immaculate kids entered, the couple of different guys, groups from Montclair, whether they were Hillside or Nishwan, I'm not really sure which way they were. But in our first game, we had to play the 7th grade kids from Montclair, and we ended up winning the game by like 2 points, and it was. We won. Good for us. We get to move on. We won our next game. I forget who it was against, but in the last game we had to play the 8th grade kids from Montclair, and they were some really good players there. But we had Dave O'Brien and we had Roger Warner, and they were for real. And we were losing by maybe 8 points at halftime. And Dave came in and just said, "All right, you," meaning me, and somebody else, Bobby Cummings was another guy on our team. "You just get under there and get rebounds. I'm taking every shot from here on in." And we ended up, Dave got hot. We ended up winning the game, and we ended up beating the 8th grade kids, which was, it was a tremendous thing for us. We still got the pictures. We laugh about it when I see some of those guys, and it was a big upset for us. But just the fact that they would do those kind of things in Montclair, just give you something to do on it. They were all Saturday morning games, and so much fun.
Absolutely. And speaking of teams, what was the best team you ever been on that you played on? The
best team that I ever played on was that first year that I was at Seton Hall, where we went out to the College World Series, and we lost to South Carolina the first game, 5-2, I think the score was. Then the second game we played Florida State, and we beat them 11-0, and they were ranked number 1 in the country at the time. And then we played Texas, and Texas was beating us, I'm going to say maybe 10-0 in the second inning. And we ended up losing to them 12-10. And we battled back. We didn't end up getting all the way back. But that was, we ended up 5th in the country. So I have to say that was the best team. I wasn't a real big contributor on that team. Like I said, I was a designated runner for the most part. But as far as the best team that I ever played on, I would say it was my senior year in baseball in high school.
Okay.
Where, Immaculate, we had a guy by the name of Pepe Fente, who was a good player. He ended up going down to Florida Southern to play. I went to Seton Hall. We had another guy that ended up playing Division I baseball at the time. Went to Colgate. A couple of other guys played. And, another guy went to NJIT. So we had like 4 or 5 guys that went on to play ball later on. And, we were playing big schools at the time. We were playing Paramus Catholic. We were playing DePaul. We were playing schools like that. And, It was a good team. Our record wasn't great, but it was probably the best team that I ever played on in high school.
Nah. Sound like it. And then the gentleman's name, you said I went to Florida Southern.
Pepe Fente.
He sound like you good. He sounds like you good, which is the name itself.
Yeah, well, he was good. He was good when he started as a freshman with me too, and he became a pitcher for us, and he had a heck of a career for us. He was a really good one.
How about best team you ever coached?
I get that question all the time. we try to decide that, the 2001 team that had Fasano on it, we don't know how anybody would ever stop him. So if, he caught, I'm going to say 78 passes his senior year. We threw, he was a tight end. He caught 78 passes and he was unstoppable. You just couldn't stop him. Another team that I had that was really, really good was the 2005 team, which Mike Camfora was a good player. That team had a great line, and we lost in the finals 21-20. We went for 2 with no time left on the clock and didn't make it. Where that team would have won a state champ. That team didn't even win a state championship, but that was one of the best teams that I ever had.
Yeah.
And then the 2014 team, I think, went 12-0. And that had Frankie Ferrari as our quarterback. And, by that time, the game had evolved where our quarterback was a very involved player in the run game. And Frankie rushed for over 1,000 yards. And he threw the ball pretty well, but he was a running quarterback. And we ran some option with him. And we had a pretty good fullback on that team, a kid by the name of Mark Racioppe, who went to a Division III school. And I would say that those 3 teams were probably the 3 best that I coached.
And it sounded like you went away from the running the eye too. I say that jokingly. I'm just joking. I know you did. I know.
Yeah, we went. The game changed.
Right.
Somebody asked me one time, "What would you like to do?" And I said, "Well, if I'd like to be in an eye and run the ball 45 times right up the middle and just steamroll people, but." The game has changed so much that you really can't do that anymore. And, we started to go spread and we'd spread people out and then we'd pick our spots and, let our quarterback. The teams that I've had that have been really, really good have had great quarterbacks that were able to audible.
Okay.
And, when they got over there, they got over the line of scrimmage, they were well schooled and they saw weaknesses in one spot and they audibled and we took advantage of it. And, those quarterbacks that were really smart, they led to the best teams that we ever had. I mean, people think that I'm calling the game. People would say to me, when we'd have these meetings with parents, the week before the game, and they'd say, "What are you going to do this week?" And I say, "I really don't know. It'll be up to the quarterback. He'll figure it out. If they put 7 people in the box, we'll probably throw the ball. If they put 8 people in the box, we'll throw it. If they put 4 people in the box, we're probably going to run it. And it'll be up to the quarterback to make those moves. But we gave our quarterbacks a lot of freedom. And for the most part, they did a great job. And, the best teams that I ever had were teams that, the quarterback was able to get over the ball and find the weakness and take advantage of it.
No, definitely. I mean, it's definitely a quarterback-driven thing now. I mean, before, you still rely on all 11, but the quarterback especially, you got to be on your toes. Totally. I know, is there a game, whether being an athlete or a coach that you could do over?
Geez,
either or.
As a coach, we played Hoboken. I want to say it was 2005. We played Hoboken in 2004, and we lost to them in the finals. And not to make excuses, but our quarterback got hurt on Thanksgiving. He broke his foot, so we had to play the game with a freshman quarterback. And Hoboken was a good team, and they beat us 21-7. But that became a rallying cry for us. And we went into the season with a good team coming back, and we drew them in the semifinals. So we're playing them in the semifinals, and right before halftime, they kicked the field goal to go up 3-0. And I would say it was about 6 minutes to go in the game, we ran a double pass where we threw the ball backward to our flanker, who threw the ball to Carlo Calabrese running down the field. Carlo had a cast on his hand. He caught the ball, and he outran everybody to the end zone. We end up kicking the extra point. It's 7-3. They take the ball. They drive right down to the 2-yard line, and with about 45 seconds to go in the game, they somehow or other, they mishandled a snap or something, and we recovered the fumble on the 3-yard line. We ended up winning the game 7-3. So, I mean, all the work that we had put in through the course of the summer, through the course of the season, was to beat Hoboken. Hoboken at this time was ranked maybe number 2 or number 3 in the state. And it was a tremendous upset. The place was packed. And afterwards, there was a traffic jam like you couldn't believe. We couldn't get the bus out of there for almost an hour. And it was really just, it was like what high school football is all about. It was really, really exciting. You know, the kids were thrilled. You know, the sad part about it is that, like I said, we ended up taking that team, and we ended up losing in the finals 21-20 because we didn't make the 2-point play to win the game. But that was the one game that I think if I ever had a chance to live over a game, that would be it, to go through that one again.
Yeah, yeah. Now that just sounds exciting. That just sounds. I mean,
it was. I mean, it really was.
So who's better, Lou Racioppe, the coach, or Lou Racioppe, the player?
Depends. It really depends on what kind of players I have.
Okay.
Lou Racioppe was a good coach because he had a lot of give credit, all the credit in the world to those kids. They worked their tails off, and when they did, and we had the talent, we were a good team. I was a good athlete, and I got a lot of good memories of being a baseball player and a baseball player and a football player. But when you're playing, it's just you.
Mm-hmm.
You have the feelings for just you. When you're the coach, you have the feelings for everybody. And when the game is over and you're talking to your team, and you see 40 kids out there and they're all smiling, you can't help but become overwhelmed because you feel their joy. You feel the joy of each and every one of them. And by the same token, when you lose, you feel the sadness for each one of those 40 kids too. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's kind of tough. But, I think that when I had good kids, we were able to take advantage of it and, put some good teams together. And I think that was, it was a lot of fun.
Best school you ever coached at?
Oh, no question. It was Verona.
Okay.
I was there for 20 years, and, for the most part, good kids, good parents, lots of good memories.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Someone who should have made it, however you want to define made it, whether it's to college or to the professional level, but whether you played with them or coached them, someone who should have made it.
It's funny because I've sent, I don't even remember what the number is, but I've sent so many kids to school, mm-hmm. some to play baseball, but most to play football. And it got to the point where they wouldn't even look at a kid if he didn't have the right numbers. I had Penn State in one day, and they were looking at a kid, and I said, I got this tackle. He's a good player. He can play for you. Believe me, he can play for you. And they say, how big is he? I said, he's 6'1", he's 240. He'll probably get up to 270. Too small. Can't even look at him. If I go back, and this is in Paterno's time, if I go back to Joe and say, I got a 6'1", 240-pound kid, he'll tell me to get lost. I can't even look at him. This kid ended up going to a school, a smaller Division I school, and he became a captain over there, and he started for them for 3 years, and he got up to like 285. And there's no question in my mind he could have played at Penn State.
Yeah.
I had a coached at Bloomsburg in Pennsylvania, and I was talking to him one time, and I had a running back who was a small kid. He was 5'9", maybe 190 pounds. He wasn't the fastest kid, but he was a tough kid, and he was really good. And I sent the film out to the coach, and the coach goes back and goes, is anybody looking at this kid? And I said, no, not really. They're all saying he's too small. He goes, I don't look at those numbers. I look at the film. I see that this kid can play. I want him to come here. He ended up going to Bryant, so he got a little bit higher than Bloomsburg. But to have a coach say, I don't care about the numbers, I want to see him on film, was kind of enlightening because, you could be, I've coached against guys that are 6'4", 240 pounds that aren't very good. And then you read that they get a scholarship to this school and you say, what is this school looking at? And then they're thinking at the numbers, but the kid's not very good. And then the kid goes to that school and he washes out, where my kid, who's 5'9", 185 pounds, runs circles around him. So I was really happy to hear that this one coach was more interested in the film than in the numbers. But he was the exception to the rule. You didn't really get a lot of people like that.
Yeah, I mean, supposedly film don't lie,
No.
So I totally get it, especially Rona, and it's still a Group 1. Is it still Group 1?
I think they're up to Group 2 now.
Okay,
but it's still a relatively small school. Yeah,
right.
I mean, we from my time there, we sent Fasano to Notre Dame. We sent Carlo Calabrese went to Notre Dame. Carlo got a tryout with the I think it was with the Vikings, and he didn't make it, but he was right there as far as being a guy who could make it to the next level. We had a couple of guys that went other Division I's. We had a kid go to Penn State. We had a kid go to a couple kids went to St. Francis in Pennsylvania. Another kid, actually 2 kids ended up going to Bryant. And this was one of the things that I thought was really good is once I sent a kid somewhere, then my word became gospel. If I said to the coach, I got another one for you, he said, he's got your recommendation. And I said, absolutely. Then he was in. The coaches believed in you. And, there were other times when a coach would come to me and say, what do you think about this kid? And I said, honestly, I don't think that he's good enough to play on your level. And being honest, you didn't ever wanted to put a kid into a situation where he wasn't going to be successful. But I think the fact that, I was honest with these coaches, told them when I had someone that was legit, and those kids usually worked out. And I told them that I had somebody that wasn't going to make it. And that was usually the case. They believed you, and, they would take your word for what it was worth and give kids opportunities that they may not have gotten if they didn't trust me.
Oh, your word means a lot.
Absolutely. Yep.
Best athlete, high school athlete in your era, your playing era. Like if you can name like 3 of them, you think that come to mind.
Well, when I was playing, and again, I ended up being teammates with a couple of these guys. One of them was Vinnie Byron, who played for Our Lady of the Valley, and he was a football player, but he was a baseball player too, and he was an all-state pitcher. And he ended up going to Seton Hall, and he played there for 4 years, and had a tremendous career over there. But when we played Valley, and I saw that he was on the mound, I kind of shrugged because I didn't really want to face him. The shortstop on that team was a guy by the name of Mike Rhoda, and Rhoda was a guy who ended up going to Seton Hall also. And same kind of thing, you get up into a game and game is tight, and all of a sudden you see Rhoda up at the plate, and it's like, oh no, we're dead, because he was going to get a hit. And if you ever hit a ball to shortstop, you knew it was an out because he just ate everything up. But they were 2 of the best that I ever played. Charlie Paleo was another guy who Charlie was a Bloomfield guy, and I played against him in Legion. I never played against him in high school, but I played against him in Legion. And he ended up pitching for the Mets and a couple of other major league teams, but he threw a ball. I was a pretty good hitter, and I could hit. I could go to left field. I was a left-handed hitter. I could go to left field with no problem. But the spin that he had on the ball and the downward motion, I could never get around on him. I could never hit him. And I hated playing inter-squad scrimmages when we played and he was pitching, because he always made me look bad. But he was one of the better pitchers that I've ever faced. As far as football, that guy that I mentioned before from Queen of Peace, Donnie Gilson, he was really fast, and he ended up actually being the host when I was recruited by Rhode. He ended up going to Rhode Island, and he was my host, and he took me around Rhode Island, and we kind of skirted the issue, and then all of a sudden he just looks at me and he just goes, I can't believe you beat us, that you ended up letting that guy run off them. And he starts going into this tirade, and
that's crazy.
I knew then that I wasn't going to go to Rhode Island and be around him, because he had a lot of deep set anger still in him. So, but he was a great running back too. And I played with the guy that I've mentioned before, Pepe Fente, was a good player that I played with. He could hit, and he became a pitcher. He was a catch. He would actually pitch one day and catch the next day. So, the idea of being, taking care of your arm was kind of didn't really happen back then. But he was a great hitter. He was a great center fielder. He became a great catcher, and he became a great pitcher. And he ended up hurting his knee, which kind of kept him from playing over down at Florida Southern. But he would have been someone that would have been a good player down the road.
Wow. A lot of names, and I got to do some digging as far as who's who. But this is just cool to hear. I know we both got, like I said, something in common. That's 33 Cottage Place, Montclair, New Jersey.
It's a great place. Mr. Dyer.
Yes.
Mr. Dyer was the athletic director there. And, I'd read out all the things that we needed to order for football season. And he'd take a look at them. And one time he came to me and goes, hey, Lou, I know we got a lot of fat linemen, but you're ordering 15 girdles. Are these girdles really going to make them look skinny? And I said, come on, Pat.
Yeah.
You know what these girdles are? And he goes, no. He said, I think that you're using them to make these kids look skinny. I said, no, they got the hip protectors on them and they got the butt pads. But that was the kind of guy Patty Dyer was. He didn't know anything about football, that's for sure, but he knew what he was doing as far as his track.
He wasn't playing around. Now, there's a lot of throughout the years that people talk here, and I know just flat out ask, are you the best athlete to come out of Immaculate?
Yeah, I think when you maybe put two sports together, I think I got to be in the running for that. I may not have been the best football player, probably was the best baseball player. And I know they don't even have a baseball program anymore, but I guess when you put the two of them together, you got to put me up there.
And with that being said, though, I know someone asked me not too long ago, these Mount Rushmores, from the professional level down to the high school. So I actually was asked. And, at Immaculate, it was my Mount Rushmore at Immaculate. And, I had you, I had Marcus Haggett, and I had Rich Kanah. And the fourth, I always just say I just rotate depending on the day. Because it's like so many people that walk through those halls. Those are my solid three. And the fourth one, I just rotate whoever.
There were so many people that were there way before us. I mean, Immaculate had a great tradition back in the 40s, 50s, and even in the 60s, which, I remember we had a teacher by the name of Mr. Gill who had an Immaculate Hall of Fame, and he had it up on the board in the classroom that he taught. And there were guys by the name of Babe Kutar, and I can't even remember some of those other guys, but apparently they were pretty good well before we were around. But I know Kanah, he was excellent, and Marcus, you got to always consider him up there. Timmy Cummings was a good pitcher and a good quarterback. Paul Theobald was a heck of a football player, and he was a big track guy.
And you got the Gills, and you got those guys. I mean,
yep. They were a bunch of. My brother was a heck of a football player and a baseball player too. I mean, he's in there with them. So. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, through the years, there's been a lot. It'll be good to see. I know they got a new football coach there now, and I hope he can get this program going in the right direction.
Yeah, no, definitely. I hope so. I hope so too as well. Question: who's best high school player like you've ever seen? Just like
the best high school player I ever saw was Anthony Fasano,
the gentleman from Rona.
Yeah. I mean, he came in. He was a freshman. Mm-hmm. My first year there, he was a freshman, and I wanted to treat the people that were there with respect, and the returners and the seniors and the juniors that had, gone through the program a little bit. Mm-hmm. I wanted to treat them with respect, and not to give them the position, but to give them first shot at the position. Right. And then the new guys, you wanted them to earn their spot. And I mean, it took about 2 days before everybody just said, this Fasano kid, he deserves to be a starter. And I think what happened was we had our first scrimmage. And he was down. We had 2 scrimmages going on at the same time. We had a varsity scrimmage going up on one field, and we had, they used to call it sub V, which was freshmen and sophomores going down on the other field. And I think our tight end got hurt in the varsity scrimmage, so I needed a tight end. So I sent Anthony up, and the coach there said, "Well, this will be the last time I see Anthony. He'll be up with you from now on." And sure enough, he started every game for us as a freshman, but. He was unbelievable. He could have picked whatever college he went to. He was a tremendous leader. He was as good a baseball player as a football player, but he just decided that he wanted to stick to football. He pitched, I think as a freshman, he pitched a 2-hit shutout in his first varsity game. He could track down balls in the outfield, and he was no question that he's the best athlete I've ever seen on the high school level.
And it's interesting. Now, as a coach, especially being, I guess, in a town, not necessarily parochial, you start to hear these kids like coming up in the little leagues and the Pop Warners or what have you. So that's got to kind of be exciting. Like, let me hold on to them, and these parochials get a hold of some of these kids and they go. Did you ever lose anybody?
We lost plenty. I mean, we lost a lot of good ones. A lot of kids went to Seton Hall. A couple kids went to MKA. We ended up losing a couple kids to St. Joe's and Bergen, but for the most part, we kept most of them. And I think the fact that a guy like Fasano, who got the success, who ended up going to Notre Dame, it showed that you could come out of a small school like Verona, go to a big college, go on and play in the pros. It doesn't really matter where you go. If you're good enough, they're going to find you. So when Calabrese came along after Anthony, I met with him, I met with his father, and I just said, he'll be. Yeah, they always wanted to say, are you going to guarantee that he's going to start? And I always said, no, I won't guarantee that. If he's the best player, he's going to start.
Right.
But I'm not going to sit here, in May and tell you that your son is going to start for me in September. He gets on the field, he earns a spot, and I have no problem playing a freshman, but he's got to earn that spot. And that kind of turned some people off, but it also led some people think that, well, at least this guy is going to give my kid a shot. And the fact that, Carlo ended up going to Notre Dame too. And it all came down to, when I called Charlie Weiss up and talked to Charlie and said, Charlie would say, what's this kid like? And I said, well, he come from the same old as Fasano. And Charlie said, that's all I need to hear. And that was it. He was set. But Carlo could have gone pretty much to anywhere he wanted. And, the fact that we had a lot of success, that we won football games, that our kids went on to college, that helped us keep a lot of the kids in town.
Yeah. And it's interesting you bring up the parents. Like, it's a whole new ball game. And I'm not in it like you are as far as the coaching and all. Like, I officiate, at the high school level, football, basketball, and I just see it. I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like some of the stuff I just hear, like, with the parents or what have you. And to your point, I mean, you couldn't say it no clearer. Like, if they can play, they'll play. I'm not promising you anything, but these parents, obviously, you see it a million, seen it a million times, them living through their kids.
Yep.
It's just unfortunate sometimes a kid don't get a fair shake because of their parents.
I had a parent one time tell me, now this is for high school baseball. Okay. The kid was either a sophomore or a junior, I forget. And I took over the baseball program, and the baseball program of Rona was in a bad spot at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And I took it over, and, we were trying to put some things in. And one of the things, this kid just didn't fit into the mold of what we were looking for as baseball players. And it's not to say he wasn't a good player, but he just wasn't what we were looking for. And the father came to me and he said, well, he batted fourth in T-ball. And I said, is that right? He batted fourth in T-ball? And the father was serious. And it's like, come on, man. I mean, we're talking 10 years ago, T-ball, and it's a little different game right now. So, I mean, yeah, I understand what you say about parents. One of the things that I did, two of my sons played ball for me. One of them played baseball and football, and one of them played just baseball. And the younger one, when he was a sophomore, he was maybe when he was a junior, our third baseman got hurt, and he moved into the spot as third base. And he really wasn't a third baseman, but we really didn't have anybody. He was a second baseman more so. And he went and he made a couple of errors. He wasn't really hitting the ball really well. And I would say, I'm going to say 3, maybe it was 4 or 5 games. Mm-hmm. I took him and I said, Trev, I got to get you out of here. And I got to put somebody else in there. Okay. So later on, when I would talk to parents and I would say, I want to win baseball games. I want to win football games. I want to put the best people out there on the field to win these games. And I think the fact that I benched my own son will tell you that I'm not playing favorites. I'm looking to put the best person out there that's going to help us win the games. And I think that sunk in with a lot of people. My son ended up being he became a great player for us. Later on, he got a couple of big hits for us, and then he was a star player for us as a senior. But he just wasn't ready for it at that time, and it wasn't the right position for him. But the fact that I would bench my own kid, it shows that I was not really playing favorites.
Absolutely. Willing to risk the doghouse at home, everything.
It was no fun going home to dinner with my wife then.
Yeah. Oh, best part about being Lou Racioppe?
My family. When I was in third grade, I met my wife, and we started dating in high school, and we'll be married 40 years in February. It'll be 40 years for us. So, having her around is tremendous. She's been a great support for me. She probably missed maybe 5 games, and all the games, baseball, football, that I've coached, because of bad weather or because of having babies or something like that. But she was always there, always supportive. She would tell me what I did right. She would tell me what I did wrong. And she wasn't afraid to, voice her opinion. And not that we always agreed, but she was always there. And then we had 3 great kids. One of them played baseball and football for me. He ended up going to Bowdoin, and now he's the father of three. So I've got three grandkids with him, and they're tremendous. I have a lot of fun with them. I have another son who is getting married in April, and he's got a great wife coming up, and he's tremendous. And I have a daughter who's almost 30 now, and she just bought a house in town, and she's getting married next summer. And it's just being around them, being around the grandkids is the best thing for me right now. It's just it's what I live for. It's just that's just it. It's not sports. It's not watching TV. It's just being around them and having fun with them and watching them really develop into, great people. And I think that gives me the most satisfaction.
No, absolutely. Especially if this last 18 months plus or whatever hasn't, signified how much family means. I don't know where the hell that person's been. No, absolutely.
No, it's been it's been rough, but I mean, we've all kept in contact through it all. And we maintained what we needed to maintain, and we were able to see each other from time to time. So it wasn't terrible for us, and we all escaped it with no problems. We were all healthy, and everything worked out for the best for us. And now I think we're all vaccinated, and we're just kind of living life and enjoying it.
Good. One last question. What would the 18-year-old Lou Racioppe, rather, what would this Lou Racioppe tell the 18-year-old Lou Racioppe? What advice would you give him?
The best advice that I would give myself is run that shortstop over. Don't dive out of the way so that he breaks your arm. Now, I've learned a lot through the years, and I just try to live my life the best that I can. When we're young, we do stupid things, and we escape, luckily, and thankfully, I was able to get through life and have no major catastrophes, and just be smart, be careful, and take care of your family, take care of your friends. And if I could do that, I think I've done a pretty good job of it. And I think that I've been very lucky. My life has been great. I have no complaints. I'm very happy with the way things have turned out, and I couldn't be in a better place right now.
Nah, fabulous. And Coach, and I just wanted to say thanks again. And I know just hearing the name, obviously me being at Immaculate just throughout the years, and obviously I know you, Coach Finn followed you in regards to taking over the ranks, and me playing for Coach Finn, but I know it's a lineage, you guys as far as the coaches and just the family and the camaraderie at Immaculate here. I was chuckling to myself when you told me, when you were just sharing the story about you just being, not only the teacher, coach, grounds crew, everything else. It was just a cycle. Everyone paid their dues, and that just talked about just a testament. And I think that spills over into our own families as far as like you do what you got to do, And I think you just shared that in regards to that. And I just think the athletically what you've done, coaching what you've done, but what you just shared the last few minutes just about family, just how important that is. I mean, all this comes together. Together, everything that you've done. And, somehow you being officially you helped me be officially me somehow, some way. Yes. And I know, I had to try what little thing that I did hold up, things at Immaculate or just in general. And just, I know what all that means. And again, like I said, it spills over into our personal lives, even to this day, like, as far as what Immaculate has done for us. So like I said, Coach, I'm totally honored that you took time out to talk to me.
No, it was my pleasure. I know I wouldn't be the person that I am now if it wasn't for Immaculate. I learned a lot of great lessons there, made a lot of good friends, met a lot of good people, and it's made me who I am today. That's for sure.
No, definitely. And then I'll try to catch you offline here. Like I said, I definitely would love to talk to Joe Kiernan. I would definitely love to just say hello to him.
I have his number in my phone somewhere. I'll text it over to you.
Okay. And like I said, I wish your family continue health, everything else. I know you coming out the pocket a little bit with these weddings coming up, but it's all worth it.
Right.
It's all worth it. Enjoy it all because we don't get it back.
I will. Definitely. Thank you. All right.
Be well, Coach.
To you.
Take care.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
All right. Yeah, definitely enjoyed this as I do the other ones as well too. Great man. Never mind the athletics and accomplishments. that helps out and what have you here. But just the man Coach Racioppe is, and like I said, it speaks volumes. So that being said, I'm just going to slide out on this. I put my hand over my heart. That means I feel you. Yeah.